to be granted.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Cronin.
I'd like to continue, thank you.
Yes, okay, thank you very much for that. So a little bit about procedural rules. I'll assume all parties have read and understood the Licensing Committee's procedural rules sent out with the notice of today's hearing. Please note that given the nature of today's proceedings, I may at my discretion amend the procedural rules to reflect the fact that the meeting is taking place online, but I want to assure you that all such amendments will not impact on the party's right to a fair hearing. We use the chat function in the to communicate, additionally to obviously speaking online, and you'll find at the top of your computer, your access bar, a speech bubble that should get you into the chat. If you could all confirm you have access to the chat facility, this will, if by recording your name, this will also give us a list of participants, which assists the recording process. So I'm going to put my name into the chat now. If everybody could follow suit, then that will help us, as I say, record the meeting process. So I'm just typing in now, and then we'll be able to proceed. Okay. Thank you very much for that. So we'll keep the chat column open for the duration of the meeting so that everyone can follow messages being posted in the chat. And we have a participant, our own our legal advisor, dialed in by audio telephone rather than Microsoft Teams. And can I confirm that you are still connected, Ms. Swampalai?
I am, Chair, thank you. I've now managed to get in on Microsoft Teams as well. So I'm here, thank you.
Okay, that's good. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for that. And we can now proceed. And as I say, with the exception of subcommittee members, please keep your camera off unless you're the person speaking. If there are problems with the bandwidth which cause difficulties, I may at my discretion ask everyone to turn the cameras off. As we know, this assists with technical difficulties sometimes. Preliminary points. Again, this will be addressed to Mr. Gibson and Mr. Cronin. Mr. Gibson, do you wish to make any preliminary points at this stage?
Not at this stage, Chair, no.
Okay. Mr. Cronin, this would be about any procedural matters, really. Did you want to make any points at this stage?
Not at this stage, but we have sort of written a short statement about the current situation. But I'll let you continue.
Okay, thank you. We do, of course, see all the documentation and read that prior to the hearing, so thank you for that. Okay, I'll talk about a little bit more about procedure. Firstly, I'll be inviting the licensing officer, Mr. Bindanandra. He'll present his report. Then the licence applicants will, and their representative will be asked to present their case. So that's Mr. Gibson. And we're asking for the presentations to be kept to maximum 20 minutes. Then those making representations, that's over to you, Mr. Cronin, will be invited to make their case. And again, we'll allot similar time to you for that. If I could ask all parties to speak slowly and clearly, as the officers are taking notes by hand for the minutes, and the meeting is being live streamed, as we know. And it helps if at any time somebody else is speaking, if you mute your microphone so we don't get any feedback. And as I say, you can use the chat function as well to communicate. But I mean, again, speak up if you need to get my attention. Okay, we ask questions. The members of the subcommittee will be able to ask questions at any stage, but we'll try to do so at the conclusion of each presentation. Cross-examination by the applicant and those making representations will not be permitted unless the members consider it appropriate. Where questions are raised by members of the subcommittee or by those present, again, you could use the chat function to signify that, but again, indicate in the usual way. And I'll be notified if there is anything I miss in terms of the chat function. So if at any point you can't hear or are having problems with your internet connection, Again, try to communicate via the chat function. It's important, obviously, everybody is able to communicate, and the officers will be monitoring that. Occasionally, it may be necessary for the subcommittee to take legal advice. At my discretion, I may ask all parties to wait in the meeting while members and the relevant officers withdraw to take legal advice using a separate meeting within Microsoft Teams. We'll then return to the meeting and continue. If there are any problems with live stream being broadcast on the City Council's website, I'll ask you all to mute your microphones and camera and stop speaking until the live stream connection is restored. If at any time the meeting goes into private session, the meeting manager will pause the live stream. Once the private part of the meeting is over, I'll ask the meeting manager to confirm that the live stream has resumed before we continue. At the conclusion of the hearing, I'll invite all parties to make a brief closing submission. No decision will be taken until all the evidence has been heard. At the decision-making stage, the members and the relevant officers will withdraw from the meeting in order to determine the decision. We'll go into a separate Microsoft Teams meeting. In the event that we need to clarify any point, you'll be telephoned by the meeting manager. The members will then make their decision. Notification of the determination of the application will be sent out to all parties within 5 working days. So that is the process. I hope that's reasonably clear. And so what I'd now like to do is ask Mr. Buchanan Manager to present his report. Mr. Nan.
Thank you, Chair. Fancy Delivery UK Limited applied on the 14th of October 2021 for the grant of a premises licence for GoPuff, Units 11 to 13, Clonmel Road, Business Park, Birmingham, B30 2BU. The purpose of the report is to consider representations that have been made in respect of an application for a premises licence which seeks to permit the sale of alcohol for consumption off the premises only to operate 24 hours Monday to Sunday. Due to the nature of the application, the public will not have access to the premises. Representations have been received from other persons, see Appendices 1 to 9. The application is attached at Appendix 10. Conditions have been agreed with West Midlands Police and the applicant, which are attached at Appendix 11, and the site location plans are attached at Appendix 12. When carrying out its licensing functions, a licensing authority must have regard to Birmingham City Council Statement of Licensing Policy and the guidance issued by the Secretary of State under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003. The licensing authority is also required to take such steps as it considers appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. The options available to the subcommittee today are to grant the licence in accordance with the application, to reject the application, to grant the licence subject to conditions modified to such an extent as considered appropriate, exclude from the licence any other licensable activities to which the application relates, or to refuse to specify a person in the licence as the premises supervisor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. So we now go on to Mr. Gibson. So Mr. Gibson, it's your opportunity to make your presentation on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. I trust you can all hear me. As you've heard this morning, this is a new application for a premises licence for an online grocery business. And it's for the consumption of alcohol off the premises. The request is to operate 24 hours a day. And what you'll find with this business, the goods available are similar to those in a typical supermarket. It's a wide range of product that is available, of which the sale of alcohol is but one. They're looking to add the sale of alcohol for consumption off the premises as part of the grocery mix. The idea here is you place your order online, you pay online, and goods are delivered to you within an average of 30 minutes to your residential address or bona fide business address. They can only be delivered to actual addresses. As has been mentioned by the officer, the public do not have access to these premises at any time. So nobody can show up and knock the door and try and buy something, be it groceries or alcohol, from the premises over the door, over the counter, so to speak. It is purely an online business. Now, Fancy Delivery UK Limited, the applicant, is now owned by a company called GoPuff, which is an American company operating in over 650 cities in the United States. Fancy themselves operate over 25 units in the UK at present, and all of them, I can safely say, without any issues in terms of contravening any of the 4 licensing objectives. These units include an existing premises in your area, Chair. There is a current premises in Birmingham at Clement Street, B1 to SW, and this premises has operated since, I believe, early March of this year, and again has operated without incident and without problem whatsoever. Now, it's worth pointing out at this stage, before I go further, that the alcohol typically makes up between 10 and 15% of the orders across the, this is taking average across the other 25 plus units that the company operate. So between 10 and 15% of the orders tend to be alcohol. So this kind of fits in really, to put a picture in your mind of a supermarket or a convenience store type operation. The business quite certainly not alcohol led. Alcohol is just part of a wider sales mix. Now, as you've heard from the officer, there was no actual representations from the responsible authorities other than the police coming to us and saying there was an additional condition that they would ask us to consider. We were more than happy to accept that condition and therefore did so. The reason for that is the applicant and the DPS who's with you today worked very closely with the police at the opening of the Clement Street site, and conditions were agreed for that side. And the police came to me at the time and said, look, if you're going to put another application in, we would like the same conditions to be put forward on this particular application, which we were more than happy to do. The one they came and asked for to be put in addition was quite simply an administrational error and was missed off the original list, and we were happy to include that. And that condition is listed in my submissions that you have received in advance of this application. It basically stated that any order for alcohol between the hours of 2 a.m. and 7 a.m. would be subject to an additional risk assessment by the seller to ascertain whether or not it was appropriate to sell alcohol at that point in time of the day or morning to that particular customer. And the police also, in that submission, have the right to veto the sales of alcohol between those hours should they feel it necessary to promote the licensing objectives. We were more than happy to accept that as a condition. There were no further representations from any of the responsible authorities, and there was no request from any responsible authority to add additional conditions to those offered with the application. And as I've said, the conditions that were offered, including the additional police one, are found on pages 3 to 6 of my submissions. So as you've heard, we were then left with 9 presentations from interested parties, 8 of those from residents in and around the premises and 1 from a councillor. Now, as you'll have seen, and this mainly for the benefit of the objector, I do understand the councillors are aware, many of the reasons really are not relevant for today. We have concerns regarding deliveries to the premises via lorries, HGVs, parking issues caused by said lorries, and maybe the pollution that those lorries will bring to the local area. Chair, as you're aware, these are not licensing issues for you today, but really were matters for the planning authority at the time that planning permission was granted for the business park. The question today for you is not whether this business is permitted to trade. That's already been determined by planning and been agreed. The issue today is, would the home delivery of alcohol, along with the other grocery items, undermine any of the 4 licensing objectives? We also have reference made to delivery issues in the representations with another company operating from the same business park. And once again, Chair, obviously this is not relevant to this application. Every application is taken on its own merits. There is no connection between the 2 companies, and there is no way that the applicant can influence the operation of any other company operating from the business park. As you're well aware, the pathway is quite clear. Should any of the residents have an issue with the operation of an existing business, then the review process exists with yourself to bring the matter to your attention. But it cannot be levelled against the applicant for this application because other companies operate in such a way. What we're left with then is 2 main areas that have been raised. One of them saying that a 24-hour delivery of alcohol will increase antisocial behaviour in the area. I don't see how that can happen, Chair. As we've said, the sale of alcohol is a remote process. It's an online process. People place orders, and then the goods are delivered to a residence within a 30-minute radius of the premises, well away from the properties nearby the site and those who are raising concerns of objection. Antisocial behaviour will not come into it. There is no interaction between the customer and the premises at all, so nobody can purchase any alcohol from the premises and then go down the street causing any problems having drunk the alcohol that they bought. It's not possible. That leaves us with the prevention of public nuisance issue regarding noise from vehicles who are actually delivering. Well, in response to that, Chair, I would say this. Firstly, the vehicles would be loaded in the car park outside the premises, which is well away from the residential properties. The business park sits, I'm not sure if you're aware of the area, the business park sits at the top of the road. You go through the gates, you turn left, go round the corner into a rather large expansive car park where the subject site is located, and any deliveries going out to customers would be loaded into the vehicles at that point, well away from residential premises, and they would not hear anything at all. The drivers concerned would wait inside the premises. The significance of that, Chair, is they're not sitting in their cars with their engines running or idling to keep warm. The vehicles are parked, switched off, and the drivers wait inside until there is a delivery to go and take. It is also pointing out, given that the issue or the permission is already in place with planning, a 24-hour delivery service could take place whether there's alcohol on board or not. This is not conditional on the sale of alcohol. And as I've already said, 10 to 15% of the sales relate to alcohol. The orders relate to alcohol. Then it is quite conceivable and quite probable in many of the occasions the vehicles that are leaving don't contain alcohol. It's a matter for everyone to consider every time you go to the supermarket, do you buy alcohol? No. It's not a concern on every single purchase. So a delivery could take place at 11 o'clock in the evening with no alcohol on board. A delivery could take place at 11:30 in the evening with a bottle of wine and 4 cans of beer on board. Would there be any difference in terms of public nuisance? The simple answer to that, Chair, is no, there would not. It doesn't have an issue that there is nothing in terms of would the sale of alcohol cause undue noise and disturbance to residents? And the answer is simply no, it would not. Finally, in my submissions, Chair, it'd be worth mentioning that there is extensive training provided to all the delivery drivers, as you would expect from a company of this magnitude and stature. The condition that is agreed with the police states that refresher training would take place every 6 months. The company are committed to doing this on a 3-monthly basis because that is their standards. And any driver who is not successfully completing the refresher training is removed from the list of drivers. And it goes without saying that any driver who does not comply with the strict standards of the company in terms of how they make a delivery, how they conduct themselves whilst behind the wheel of their vehicle, once again, they are removed from the list of drivers. Chair, you have an application that has extensive, robust conditions offered. The authorities are more than happy to accept the application in its present form. The police, who are the primary custodians of the prevention of crime and disorder, are happy. Environmental health, who are the primary custodians of the prevention of public nuisance, are more than happy with the application and support the application. And the application before you, Chair, I would invite you to grant in its current format. I am here to take questions. As you've heard, Mr. Wilson, the DPS of the premises, and a very experienced person within Fancy Delivery UK is also here to answer questions. We happily invite any questions you may have. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbs. Very helpful. I'll go to questions from members. And Councillor Beecham, do you have any questions? Oh, you're on mute, Councillor Beecham.
Yes, please, if I may, Chairman. More particularly on the transactions that take place themselves, there are several things that I'd like to know on that. Is the fleet of vehicles that you use for delivery the only things that do all the delivery, or are you expecting people to turn up and fill their own motor up? 1. 2, are these vehicles liveried? Do they state what and who it is that they are working for? And you have 24 hours of opening. So 3 is what happens to the vehicles that are sitting doggo on the car park until called. And how do you take money from the customer and how do you deal with the money side of it as far as that's concerned? And just as a in passing, what number of staff are you likely to have at any time in the business?
Okay, a number of questions there, Mr. Gibson. I don't know whether you've got them all, but would you like to respond?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, sorry, I'm taking a while getting off mute. I think this response will be a combination of myself and Mr. Wilson, because there are more specific questions to the business that Mr. Wilson would be better placed to answer. The first question, would it be delivery only, or could somebody show up and load up their own car? I think it's fair to say that is covered by the condition that we have offered that says customers have no access to the premises at any time. And this would include anyone showing up, knocking the door and saying, I'm here to pick up a delivery. It's not possible. The delivery of the product mix, be it groceries, be it alcohol, is delivered to the home address of the ordering person. There is no facility whatsoever for anybody outside of the business to show up and pick up goods and load them up in their own car. The other one I think that I can answer, I think I did answer, that what happens to the vehicles in the car park that are not delivering? Well, they're parked up in the car park, engines off, locked up, and the drivers wait inside until they're called, and they would then go out and start their vehicle and deliver the goods as required. The third one that I could possibly pick up, and obviously Mr. Wilson can jump in when he says opportunity. How does money change hands? Money changes hands, in my experience, it's by card payment over the internet. So payment has to be made in advance of any goods being delivered. But again, Mr. Wilson could enlighten you further on that, being more experienced in actually day-to-day running of the business. Mr. Wilson, would you like to jump in and cover the remaining points? I can help you with the questions that I haven't taken on. Would there be names on the vehicle? I think you asked, would they be actually identified as delivery vehicles, and the numbers of staff that you would have working in the premises at a typical time?
Yeah, of course, no problem. Thank you for your questions, Councillor. So the delivery vehicles aren't branded. They haven't got any sort of GoPuff or fancy branding on them. And then in terms of staff within the premises, so at any one time, there'll be sort of between 5 and 8 people working within the premises. So this will be the warehouse manager, the shift manager, and OAs, operations associates, who will pick and pack the orders. And then drivers, depending on the time of day and the day of the week, there'll be anywhere between 3 and 10 drivers on shift.
Mr. Wilson,
Okay.
just on that, before you carry on, sorry, Chair.
Yep.
Given the other questions that I've answered on your behalf, are you anything you wish to add, or are you happy with my answers on the other questions?
Probably one thing just to clear up was when a driver finishes their shift, because they operate out of their own vehicle, there won't be any extra vehicles left over. So all the vehicles that will be on premises are being used for deliveries. There won't be vehicles left when a driver's not delivering.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay. So if I may, Mr. Wilson, the type of vehicle then is the driver's own vehicle. Then it's not a fleet of vans. It will vary.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for that. Councillor Straker-Welds, have you got any questions?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, please, if I may. Are the drivers who deliver the goods to households, are they employees of, is it GoPuff, or are they subcontracted for this purpose?
I can pick up what Mr. Wilson can jump in after I've said. My understanding is it's a rather complex agreement. They are, my understanding, self-employed, but they only work for GoPuff on those particular shifts. So a driver that comes to work for GoPuff will be there for the duration. He's not going to come and deliver goods for GoPuff and then wander off and do something for a takeaway down the road and then come back. The drivers are, I think it's an agreement employment-wise that they've come to. The drivers are, although they are self-employed, they work exclusively for GoPuff. Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, that's correct. So they are self-employed, but they commit to a number of hours working for us. So they won't work between other companies.
Thank you. The reason for my question is quite a simple one, really, which is if they are not employees of GoPuff, how do you ensure accountability for delivery, for instance, of alcohol to households in line with the licensing objectives to make sure that it goes to the right person, goes to the person of the right age, and it is not in any shape or form an illicit substance? Thank you.
I can take this one, Stuart.
Okay.
I'm happy to take this one. So all drivers that sign up to work for GoPuff will have to complete training before they're even allowed to accept a delivery. So this is comprehensive training. It doesn't just cover alcohol delivery, but it covers all aspects of the business. So to be onboarded as a driver, they have to go through this training, and it's the same every 3 months. So every 3 months, if a rider starts in January, when they get to March, again, they'll get to a point where they need to complete training. Otherwise, they can't keep accepting orders. So this allows us to keep training our riders in a number of different aspects, but one of them important aspects being the alcohol side of things. So the Challenge 25 policy, the operate, and lots of different things. So that happens when they start, and then every 3 months while they work for us.
And just one last question from me, Chair. Can I press you on the business of accountability for making sure the sales go to the right person and in the right way and without any difficulties at all around that in terms of the licensing objectives? Ensure accountability for the delivery of all of this. I mean, you told me about the training, but how do you ensure that the say alcohol, the right alcohol, is delivered to the right person in the right way? And you have control, if you like, over the driver's deployment of this.
Yeah, no problem. So if a customer orders an alcohol delivery within the training for the rider, they will be asked to check the customer's name against the order. So we won't deliver an order to a customer if it's not their order, if that makes sense. So if there's a house with multiple occupancy or whatever it might be, we'll always check that order that's come in is the same name as the customer receiving it. If the customer looks under 25, then there'll be an ID check against that customer. So that makes sure that the driver is always giving the order to the correct customer that's made that order with their credit card through the app.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Chairman,
Thank you. Yes.
Can I just raise the point of the noise and nuisance? Groceries are a quiet thing to deliver, but bottles and cans aren't particularly. And what is taking place as far as the mitigation of the noise is concerned?
Mr. Wilson, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, well, probably my first answer back to that is most of the deliveries won't happen within the radius. But secondly, if orders take 10-15% of those orders that contain alcohol, most likely they're with items that aren't bottles and cans, and they therefore, when they're packed in a bag, they'll likely say if a customer orders 2 wine bottles, they'll likely be separated within bags. So for us to be able to deliver these items to customers in one piece, we'll always make sure that they're not hitting each other so they don't break, not always just because of noise. So we kind of we'll always pack the orders in the most efficient way to make sure that they don't break and also don't cause as much noise. So if alcohol orders containing multiple items, they'll be separated across bags, because most of the time they'll also contain items that aren't alcohol and aren't bottles and cans, that will reduce that noise.
And how does the alcohol get to your premises?
It's delivered by our suppliers.
Who are aware of the noise level?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for those questions, colleagues. No more from me. Okay, so I'd now like to move on to Mr. Cronin and his presentation. Mr. Cronin.
Hi, yeah, I've just got a few questions here in relation to what you've just been speaking about.
Well, we may be able to. We can't. We've finished the session with,
to Mr. Wilson and Mr. Gibson.
Yeah,
a couple of questions.
We don't sort of do as I said, we don't do the sort of cross-examination. But what you can do is put your questions out there,
sure,
and then we can either ask them or
right.
you know, we can ask them to be addressed in the summing up at the end. And so yeah,
That's brilliant. Yeah, sure. So no branding on the vehicles. Who do we know's coming up our street at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning? Say they're petrol or diesel cars or mopeds and not electric. The company that are in there at the minute are using electric vehicles, which are very quiet. And also this other premises in B31 Clement Street, is that located on a residential road?
I'm not sure the other premises.
We hear everything. And the point about people cross-checking the licenses, the driver's license when you deliver food and the age. We've had deliveries from Get Here, Uber Eats, Just Eat, and Deliveroo knock on our door and use our address for the workers next door and the builders next door, ordering food and groceries to our house, turning them away daily basis. So I don't, the point about checking alcohol, anyone could do it. Anyone could walk up to somebody's house, use their address, show their passport, hasn't got an address on it. Yep, that's me. I live here, and off they go. So they're my main points. The other one, if alcohol is served, it's going to mean more deliveries of HGVs, bigger loads. We already have many HGVs that are too big for this road coming up here. And it is the noise, the nuisance, the pollution. It's really affecting us.
Okay, those are your concerns then, really. You're concerned about the traffic issue, which actually may be more of a planning issue, and we're restricted to looking at the 4 licensing conditions, but we know what you've said. Is there anything else you want to say, Mr.
Yeah, that is very true. But if alcohol is brought into these premises, then yeah, there is going to be more deliveries. The size of the loads on these HGVs is going to be much more. So it is a licensing issue because it's affecting the people on the premise on the road. We have to move our vehicles on a daily basis for these lorries. I invite you to come down and have a look at these lorries.
That's a planning issue. You see, the planning consideration is separate to what we can do on licensing. But we hear what you say. So your concern is potential nuisance from the site, then, from the coming and going. This is what you're saying, really, in terms of the alcohol sale. Is that
most definitely? These aren't new build houses. These are Edwardian terraced houses. We can hear everything in the houses. All of us of vehicles coming up and down.
We have a map of the location, so we are able to look at that.
Well, if you've got cars coming up and down our road at 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, as our 4-year-old son sleeps in the front bedroom, we can hear everything. So 24 hours, 7 days a week. You're putting a sentence on us here, really. We weren't promised this. We've been missold. We were told this would be for local businesses, not multi-billion-pound companies like Getir and GoPuff.
Is that your point then? Is there anything else you want to say? You'll get a chance to say something at the end.
I will. I have got some more points, but that's my main points there. Thank you.
If you've got some points, you need to make them now, because your summing up is supposed to be just what you've said already. Not any new stuff, you see. There's any new point you want to make before we move on?
Well, I've got a statement here I'd like to read, to be honest, that we've put together. But would you like me to read that later?
Well, no, you need to read that now if you want.
Sure, I'll read it now.
Yeah.
So we are residents of Clonmel Road and have a 4-year-old son and a 1-month-old daughter. Before the industrial site was here, it was a factory, working 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. We live next to the site, sharing an adjoining wall, very close to the entrance gates. We have had 18 months of noise from DBS. Our house has literally been shaking at times, drilling and building work commencing before 8 a.m, which I have confronted them about many times with no results. We were told small local businesses would be moving in. We were happy. We love Sturchley and love how it's changing. Unfortunately, a company with 2.6 billion moved in, Getir, and GoPuff will be here soon. They have constant deliveries every day, Arctics, 18 and 24-ton lorries delivering very close to our house, causing pollution and everyday nuisance. Residents having to move their vehicles daily. An 80-year-old woman, Anne, opposite, has to move her car 3 or 4 times a day. They have to ride up onto the pavements and cause havoc. The unsociable hours are ridiculous. 5 a.m. till midnight currently. Getir, the similar company to GoPuff operating, that's 19 hours a day they're open, and now you're saying 24 hours a day. Their bin lorry arrives between 10 p.m. and 11:30 p.m. every Tuesday and Thursday, with orange flashing lights, loud noises and banging of bins, which occasionally wakes our son. The riders beat their horns round the blind corner and don't use the mirror. We can hear these horns in every room of our house and even in our garden. There's been reports of them driving up pavements and the wrong way and up one-way streets. As I said before, these are Edwardian houses, terrace houses, not new builds, not insulated very well. The double glazing isn't the best. We can hear everything on this street. When a car passes, and when a lorry passes, our front door rumbles. The traffic pollution and noise is currently unbearable. We have had our addresses removed from the Getir website because deliveries keep turning up from workers and people and builders working next door, delivering groceries to our house. All of this is causing major stress and affecting our mental health. The sound travels through the business park and onto the roads at late hours. Nothing to absorb the noise. There's no trees on this road. And it's going to continue to have a major impact on our lives in a negative way. All the surrounding roads have signs saying unsuitable for HGVs. Ours doesn't. Ours is a smaller and tighter cul-de-sac. In the report, Mr. Gibson states the environmental health team support the application. Well, where were the residents consulted on this discussion? We weren't at all at any point. No one's knocked on our door, give us no letter, come down and spoke to us about the implications of all this. The traffic will rise with alcohol being served. There will be more vehicles riding 24 hours a day up our streets. And you know what? The right to sleep is a vital one. We like sleep. We need sleep. We work hard. We've got 2 young children. Mr. Gibson also states that it will help the economy. What about protecting the economy and protecting us and our jobs? Going to sleep, waking up with hardly any sleep, being disturbed, knocked on the door at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. Could you move your car, please, sir? Can't get this 24-ton lorry packed round the corner. Well, why should we? We're legally parked. There's no no double yellows, no parking restrictions. We would be living under 7 days a week, 24-hour sentences, if this is brought in our houses. Permanent noise and nuisance. I hope you all take my points and our points on this road very seriously. There's people that have been born on this street that are constantly stressed and upset about what's happened, and consider the impact on our mental health, well-being and quality of life for the foreseeable future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Cronin. What I'll do is now ask colleagues if they have questions. Councillor Straker-Wells, do you have any questions, Mr. Cronin?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, please. You've painted a negative picture of the traffic noise and volume, which you foresee taking place at night to a greater extent and disrupting people's peace and quiet. And you also mention other forms of noise, like the motorcycles delivering, for smaller scale deliveries. What I'd really like to get a handle on is the noises generated by lorries, as opposed to the traffic noise that's generated by smaller scale by motorcycle deliveries. Do you think the delivery by lorry as a noise is more disruptive?
Mr. Cronin?
Yeah, sure. Well, with the current company that are there at the minute, Get Here, they use electric mopeds, which are great, and we don't hear them. At the beginning, they beeped around the corner. They occasionally do if there's a new starter, but we've asked them to stop beeping now. But yes, the lorries, the HGVs are the biggest issue. And obviously, if GoPuff moves in, then it's going to be increased dramatically. What can we do? We're parked legally. These vehicles are too big to get up the road, and yes, they do ride on the pavement. They have to ride on the pavement to get in and out, and we have to move our vehicles. And the noise, yeah, they do shake our windows and our doors.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cronin. I'll go to Councillor Beecham then, if that's all right. Councillor Beecham, any questions?
Chairman, the gentleman has outlined his objections very clearly, and we've listened very well, and he's answered all the questions that I was going to ask him. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so thank you. As I say, Mr. Cronin, you'll have a chance to just sum up for a few minutes at the end. And in fact, we are on to the closing submissions now. So is there anything else you'd like to tell us before I go on to Mr. Gibson to sum up for his for the applicant?
Yeah, all I would like to say is there's 9 houses on this street with young families, and some OAPs. Everybody works, with close-knit roads, and this has just disrupted our way of life, our sleeping patterns, everything. It's not what we were promised, not what we were told by the people of DBS. I know we can't do anything now with these companies coming in, but there are some great little companies next door, some family-run local businesses in this business site, which is fantastic for Sturchley, which we're really happy about. But the 24 hours a day, vehicles coming up our roads, as I said, with the houses not being, they're not new, they're not insulated well. We can hear everything. We just want to go back to how it was before, and we just believe that it's going to cause us a lot more stress and partake, and it's going to cause us a lot more problems in life with this, and we don't want that. We're you know, we're a happy young family, and we don't want any more of this to continue. The noise, the pollution. Our son has asthma. He has to have an inhaler every day. You know, we're considering moving out of the area because of it. And I just hope you take all these points on board, and just think if it was your grandson in that room above that could hear the lorries and the cars and the bin lorries coming up at past midnight every day. And thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Cronin, for contributing today. So I now come to Mr. Gibson to sum up for the applicant. Mr. Gibson.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I'm just getting things switched back on again. Listen very carefully to what the objector has said, and obviously sympathies lie in his direction. The point we have before us today is the 24-hour operation can continue, or would have continued had we not come to a license hearing anyway. It's not conditional on the license being granted that the business operates. The business can operate as it stands right now. There was also talk about there would be additional lorries coming if you allowed alcohol. Well, that's 10 to 15% of orders are alcohol. The alcohol deliveries can be contained within these existing lorries that are already coming. There's additional vehicles to deliver alcohol as such, so there would be no change in that respect. And currently the premises can deliver goods to residential houses through vehicles as it stands. You've heard from Mr. Wilson how the careful packing of the goods will ensure there'll be no clinking of bottles and cans and so forth, for many reasons, as he wisely points out. If you put a load of bottles together and they clink together, the risk of them breaking by the time they get there is very real. So the packing of the goods, for many reasons, will be very carefully monitored and carried out. 10 to 15% of deliveries alcohol-based in terms of product. It's not an alcohol-led business. It's merely a part of the overall sales mix. And the gentleman talks about this was meant for local businesses. Well, okay, this is an international business, and it's going to be a nationwide, or is a nationwide in terms of fancy, but the business that this particular premises will undertake will be local. It's within 30 minutes of the premises. That's where they deliver to. So you're not going to phone up from somewhere in Nottingham and say, I would like a delivery from Birmingham. It's just not going to happen because they're not fulfilling their demand of delivering within 30 minutes. Chair, that is the submissions. The only other thing I would say, in preparation for this hearing, a couple of Saturdays ago, I took it upon myself to go and sit outside the business park, just inside the gates, really, for about 3.5 hours to watch what happened. And it was minimal, Chair. I have to be honest. I went expecting an awful lot more than was there. There was, I think, in about the 3.5 hours, 3 or 4 bikes went up and down, and that was it. The road is wide enough for 2 cars to pass. However, the residents have to park in the street. And so when residents park in the street either side, then it's really just one vehicle can get up there, and that is the issue. But Chair, what I'm asking you to consider is this is an application that is not going to add to anything in terms of contravening any of the licensing objectives. The premises can trade as it stands now. Whether that the objector agrees with that or not, that is the situation. And by adding alcohol, of which 10 to 15% of the business contains alcohol, then you're not going to basically contravene any of the 4 licensing objectives by granting the application. I would ask that you grant as we have requested. Thank you, Chair. Thanks very much for your time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gibson, and thank you again to Mr. Cronin and Mr. Wilson, the DPS. So thank you for that. We have the information. So what I'll now do is ask all parties to leave the MS Teams meeting, and the members, the committee lawyer and the committee manager will go into a private session of the subcommittee, and the subcommittee will make its decision. You'll be notified of the decision of the subcommittee within 5 working days. So again, thank you very much for your contributions today. Members, just a 5-minute break, and then we'll reconvene in the decision-making room. So again, thank you very much. I close the public hearing.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.